Welcome back to another episode of the Unfounded Podcast, everyone. How you doing? I hope you're doing well. Hope you're staying safe, staying healthy. And for those of you in states who are opening back up, congratulations. I am not one of them. My county decided to be fantastic and extend it to the 8th, so I'm a little disappointed about that. But like I said, I hope that you are out there enjoying yourself, maybe going out to eat or something like that. Anyways, rolling right into it, I got a couple announcements real quick. I will be out of town for the next week or so after this. I'm leaving tomorrow, and I'll be back thinking about Wednesday or so next week. So won't be any episodes coming out for those 6 or 7 days. This will be the last one before then, but wanted to give you a heads up on that so you're not looking for them. And thank you for the support, guys. I really appreciate it. Thanks for the likes, shares, and subscribes. Please continue to do so if you find this valuable. If you know somebody that may enjoy it as well, please share it with them. I want to get this in front of as many people that enjoy it as possible. All right, so we're really right into it today. It's going to be a little different than what we were talking about the last couple episodes. You know, I've been studying the morphic resonance principle and Rupert Sheldrake and talking about that quite a bit. And I'm still working through his book. I'm going to try to finish it on my drive to Phoenix. That's where I'm going. I'm going to visit my parents and my buddy out in Vegas as well. So buddy's in Vegas, actually. So, excuse me. So that's what I'm doing. But on the drive out there, it's a long drive. It's like a 12 or 14 hour drive. So I plan to knock out a couple of those books on that drive as well. I've already gotten a little bit through them, but I want to do a little more reading on that subject. I've just fascinated by it, and I hope you are as well. I hope it's been an interesting subject to follow. But for today's episode, I want to kind of switch things up a little bit. And what I want to do is kind of, I want to play with this idea of the 10 Commandments and the 7 deadly sins. Now, this is obviously going to be a more spiritual talk right off the bat, right? But the reason I want to focus on the 7 deadly sins, at least, is really where it's stemming from. I don't know yet, but we're going to find out, because I think there's some kind of value in there. I want to kind of pull apart the 7 deadly sins, analyze each one, and apply them in a modern context and see how it applies to our modern world. Anyway, the idea struck me when I was thinking about if you had to pick one sin in the Christian tradition or the Catholic tradition, what sin would it be? Would be the most popular sin modern day. Excuse me, I just pulled my headphones out again. I do that a lot because I like to fidget. One of those people that like talk with their hands a lot. You know what I mean? So I tend to pull on accident, pull out the headphones. Anyway, back in. All right, so we're good to go. But I was trying to think about, I was sitting there today, and I dropped my car off. I'm getting my winter tires changed back over to my summer tires before I do the drive, and sitting there thinking, or walking back thinking, and I'm like, you know, what if there was one sin that defined modern humanity, what would it be? And the one that popped in my head right away was gluttony. Now, let's pull back a little bit. I want to go first. I want to kind of set up the 7 deadly sins, give you a little bit of context and history and how they relate to the 10 Commandments, that kind of thing. So anyway, this is just right off of Google. I typed in the origin of the 7 deadly sins, right? I'm going to pull up the Wikipedia page here, and I'll read it for you. So, the 7 deadly sins, also known as the capital vices or cardinal sins, is a grouping and classification of vices within Christian teachings. Although it does not appear explicitly in the Bible, behaviors or habits are classified under this category if they directly give birth to other immoralities. So these are like the distilled sins, essentially. According to the standard list, they are pride, greed, lust, envy, gluttony, wrath, and sloth, which are also contrary to the 7 heavenly virtues. I had not heard about that. We're going to have to pull that up and read that later. These sins are often thought to be abuses or excessive versions of one's natural faculties or passions. For example, gluttony abuses one's desire to eat, to consume. Going on, this classification originated with the Desert Fathers, especially Evagrius Ponticus. I've not heard of him before. Let's pull him up as well. Also called Evagrius the Solitary, was a Christian monk and ascetic, one of the most influential theologians in the late 4th century church, since 300 AD. He was well known as a thinker, polished speaker, and gifted writer. He left a promising ecclesiastical career. That is a hard word, ecclesiastical. I don't know if you've ever done that one. Anyway, who identified 7 or 8 evil thoughts or spirits that one needed to overcome. Evagrius's pupil, John Cassian. Let's see what he's all about. John Cassian, also known as John the Ascetic and John Cassian the Roman, was a Christian monk and theologian celebrated in both the Western and Eastern churches for his mystical writings. Cassian is noted for his role in bringing the ideas and practices of Christianity. It stopped there, sorry. I just have these little excerpts that are popping up when I roll over their name, and it stopped. We'll continue on. Evagrius's pupil, John Cassian, with his book The Institutes, brought the classification to Europe, where it became fundamental to Catholic confessional practices as evident in penitential manuals, sermons like Parsons' Tale from Chaucer's Canterbury Tales, and artworks like Dante's Purgatory. Everybody knows Dante's Inferno, right? Where there's another Dante's Purgatory, where the penitents of Mount Purgatory are depicted as being grouped and penanced according to the worst capital sin they committed. And the Catholic Church used the concept of the deadly sins in order to help people curb their inclination towards evil before dire consequences and misdeeds could occur. The leader teachers especially focused on pride, which is thought to be the sin that severs the soul from grace. That's interesting. Pride. Ooh, that's so interesting. I'm curious if you're putting together why yet. We'll come back to that. Pride. Hold on, I gotta, okay. Let me highlight that. And the one that is representative and the very essence of all evil. I agree, and greed. Both of which are seen as inherently sinful and as underlying all other sins to be prevented. To inspire people to focus on the 7 deadly sins, the vices are discussed in treatises and depicted in paintings and sculpture decorations on Catholic churches as well as older textbooks. So I find this absolutely fascinating, mainly because the 7 deadly sins, the idea of the cardinal sins, we just put together, was not originally part of the Bible. It's not in the Bible. You're not going to find it in the Bible. You'll find the 10 Commandments in the Bible, but you're not going to find the 7 deadly sins, the capital vices, the cardinal sins, whatever you want to refer to them as. Now, I didn't know in this as well that apparently there are 7 heavenly virtues. Let's go ahead and read those real quick before we continue on with the 7 deadly sins. All right, so the Catechism of the Catholic Church defines virtue as a habitual and firm disposition to do the good. Traditionally, the 7 Christian virtues, or heavenly virtues, combine the 4 classical cardinal virtues of prudence, justice, temperance, and courage, with the 3 theological virtues of faith, hope, and charity. These were adopted by the Church Fathers as the 7 virtues. Cardinal virtues. The Greek philosophers Aristotle and Plato regarded the temperance, wisdom, justice, and courage as the 4 most desirable character traits. The Book of Wisdom is one of the 7 sapiential. Some of these words are ridiculously hard to pronounce. Sapiential. It's a wisdom literature. It's a genre of literature common in the ancient Near East. This is really cool, by the way. Also, I love that on Wikipedia. If you just put your cursor on top of any highlighted word, it'll define it for you. It's pretty awesome. It's one of the 7 sapiential books included in the Septuagint. I can't pronounce these. I'm very sorry. I'm going to just continue on. So, like I said, it's 4 basic. The cardinal virtues are 4 basic virtues: prudence, justice, fortitude, and temperance, and those are combined with the theological virtues of faith, hope, and charity, and those form the 7 Christian virtues or heavenly virtues. All right, so. Okay, so and then this is 7 virtues and the 7 capital sins. So this puts, like I said, I'll put all this up for you so you can look yourself. But this puts each virtue with its associated opposite sin, right? So chastity is a virtue in this, and it lists lust as the opposite of chastity. Makes sense. Temperance goes with gluttony. Charity goes with greed. Diligence goes with sloth. Patience goes with wrath. Kindness goes with envy. And humility goes with pride. All right. So, setting that up, what I want to do, and I'm going to start it with this episode, and we'll kind of continue on going down this, but we're going to try to look at each of these virtues, not only the virtues but also the sins, right? And we're gonna study them a little bit and try to apply them to a modern context, see what we can pull out of there. Okay, so for this one, I'm gonna use this Wikipedia page as a resource because it kind of lists everything in order, and we'll just go in order. Actually, no, we won't, because I was already thinking about gluttony. Let's do gluttony. So gluttony. Gluttony is the overindulgence and overconsumption of anything to the point of waste. The word derives from the Latin glutire, meaning to gulp down or swallow. In Christianity, it is considered a sin if the excessive desire for food causes it to be withheld from the needy. Because of these scripts, gluttony can be interpreted as selfishness, essentially placing concern with one's own impulses or interests above the well-being or interests of others. During times of famine, war, and similar periods when food is scarce, it is possible for one to directly or indirectly kill other people through starvation just by eating too much or even too soon. Medieval church leaders, Thomas Aquinas, took a more expensive view of gluttony, arguing that it could also include an obsessive anticipation of meals and the constant eating of delicacies and excessively costly foods. Aquinas went so far as to prepare a list of 5 ways to commit gluttony, comprising lot, which means eating too expensively, studios, meaning eating too daintily, nimis, meaning eating too much, prepropere, which means eating too soon, and ardenter, meaning eating too eagerly. I think that's absolutely fascinating. Of these, ardenter is often considered the most serious, since it is extreme attachment to the pleasure of mere eating, which can make the committer eat impulsively, absolutely and without qualification, live merely to eat and drink, lose attachment to health-related, social, intellectual, and spiritual pleasures, and lose proper judgment. An example is a sow selling his birthright for ordinary food of bread and pottage of lentils. I believe this is a biblical reference. His punishment was that of the profane version who, for a morsel of meat, sold his birthright. Anyway, we're going to continue on. That doesn't make any sense in the context. Anyway, probably does. It didn't make sense when I wrote it. So, read it, I mean. Gluttony. Now, you can obviously, I'm sure as I've been reading, I know there's a lot of reading to start off the episode, guys. Sorry about that. I'll try to limit that as much as I can. But I wanted to read out the definition so we're all on the same page, get this set up properly, right? So, gluttony. Obviously, I think, and this is why I brought it up, and I think this is why we're talking about it right now, that of the 7 deadly sins that we've just established, gluttony is the one that is the most prevalent within our modern society. I might be wrong about this. We might find that one of these other 7 deadly sins, as we go through them in the future, is more relevant or prevalent. But this is what I think going into this, right, into this study that we're going into. Excuse me. I view much of our modern society as gluttonous to an astonishing level, right? When you think about the modern condition, excess is encouraged. I believe this might also be, this is related to, I think it's very, very tightly tied to capitalism. And I'm going to be critical of capitalism in this talk, it looks like. Know that does not mean that I'm trying to argue for, let's say, a planned economy or something like that. I'm not. I'm simply trying to point out the shortcomings of the system we currently have, so that maybe we can try to streamline it in the future, if that makes sense. All right. There's many positives. I think one of the things that's most brilliant about a capitalist system is in many ways, its ideal form, it is a natural system, meaning that it mirrors, as far as we know, the natural world, the survival structure, right? So if you are more more well equipped to produce something of value in our economy, you're going to be rewarded for that, and you're going to be, placed in a position of higher power, or, which usually comes with higher monetary reward, right? You move up this ladder, this creates this hierarchy. And in many ways, I think the capitalist system has traded, excuse me, somebody's calling me, has traded away, it's switched out the standard survival hierarchy. So like the what do they call it in the food chain? We've escaped the food chain as human beings, right? We no longer play in that. We're no longer, constantly fighting for survival every day. We've escaped that. And because of that, I think we've created a system that mirrors it. Capitalism itself, it's this survival system without... I'm trying to think of the word right now. I'm sorry, guys. It's like a faux survival hierarchy. I can't think of the frickin' word right now. I'm sorry. It's very frustrating me. But it's a facade. You know what I mean? It's a fake version of the system that we've played for most of humanity's existence, right? That's what it is. Sorry, hold on one second, guys. I've got people calling me and stuff. And because of that, we recognize something about like our humanity's inbuilt need to survive, and so we've leveraged that, and in a hierarchy that switches out actual survival for monetary gain. That's what I'm trying to get out, right? So this economy that we've built is essentially the survival game with lower stakes. You know what I mean? If you get what I'm saying. And I think that's partially why the system's so attractive, right? Is because it mirrors the natural system, the natural hierarchy of survival that's built into nature itself. And so there's something natural about, an uncontrolled capitalist economy. The problem is in order for it to work properly or to work sustainably, you have to have good actors within that system, right? Actors that are willing to work for the benefit of the whole rather than just the benefit of the individual, which is kind of the opposite message that you're being presented politically, where politically in the United States, at least in the Western world, you're being told that the individual is a sole point of focus, that you should focus on yourself for development, individual development. I think part of the problem is when you have a capitalist economy telling you, like survive, 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 and then you have a political system that's telling you focus on yourself, with neither of them, solidifying some way to control people's ethical and moral impulses. What evolves is a system that is immoral and filled with sinful behavior. Now, I think this is partially one of the reasons why gluttony has become I feel like all of these sins, if you were to try to apply them to yourself, like ask yourself, am I a gluttonous person? Yeah, almost instantaneously your reaction is going to be no, I'm not, because you attach that with a bad person, right? I'm not a bad person. But relative to most people throughout human history, there's never been a more gluttonous society than the Western world, period. Now, it's produced a lot of good things too, which is confusing. We looked up these 7 virtues as well. The one that is opposite gluttony is temperance. Now, one of the things, let me read that. Temperance is in its modern use is defined as moderation or voluntary self-restraint. It is typically described in terms of what an individual voluntarily refrains from doing. This includes restraint from retaliation in the form of nonviolence and forgiveness, restraint from arrogance in the form of humility and modesty, restraint from excesses such as extravagant luxury or splurging, now in the form of prudence, and restraint from excessive anger or craving for something in the form of calmness and self-control. Okay. One of the things that can come out of a system that doesn't properly recognize the motivations of people. If you create a natural system, if you try to mimic a natural system, like the food chain itself in nature, it assumes that the system you're creating is also going to have all of the other natural intricacies working for it that nature does to produce a balance. It assumes that you know how to maintain a balance. And I don't think we do. And I think that's kind of why something like our economy has produced this type of behavior, because we don't understand how to focus on the individual while also working for the collective? How do you combine those two ideas? Because they're opposites. You know what I mean? Do you place, because it's very dangerous to do only one. It's very dangerous to only focus on yourself, and it's very dangerous to only place yourself in the collective. You do either of those, and you're headed down a really dangerous path. The one on the right is a path to selfishness, and sociopathy, psychopathy. I mean, that's the path to lunacy, I think. Focusing only on yourself and this and how you can be benefited, how everybody else can benefit you. Focus on that for long enough, and you'll drive yourself insane, or mad, or into a maniac, right? Focus on you being nothing, the collective being the only purpose, you being a part of this collective. And it's also very dangerous because what you also do when you do that, when you take yourself out of yourself and you place it into a bigger idea, that's me now. I'm now the SJW, right? I'm now the activist. I'm now you're placing yourself in that. It relieves you of the responsibility of your action because your action is now a part of the group. And so it allows you to do whatever the group directs, which is how you get people to do the worst things in humanity's history. You know what I mean? This is that group think. This is that, this is how you get people to do really horrible shit, right? So either of those are not good. What we need is a balance. What we need is this focus on the individual that somehow leverages the best in each individual person, which is kind of when that person's vector is aligned with society as a whole. When everybody's individual vector kind of points in the direction society is pointing, or the community or culture is pointing, right? It's like it all aligns, but each individual one, has its own uniqueness that it brings to the equation. I think that's kind of the idea that we need to kind of focus on. But this gluttonous way we lead our lives, this overindulging, this overconsuming, this focusing on the next meal, for instance, many of you, that's a really good way to find it in yourself is like, what do you, when you're having when you're in the middle of the grind, and you're just doing day over day over day over day, and it feels like it's endless, and you're just coming home doing the same thing over and over, what do you look forward to? A lot of times it's going to be just the meals. You'll start to just look forward to just eating, because it's like something I can enjoy. It's like the only thing I can enjoy in my day is the eating part. Well, it's good that you're appreciating something in your day, but it's also a gluttonous behavior. If you let that go too far, you're going to lead to some problems. It's a sinful thing to do because it leads down a sinful road. It leads you focusing on yourself, focusing on pleasure as a source of happiness. And then if you focus on pleasure as a source of happiness, you'll search for happiness through pleasure. If you do that too long, you'll realize that it's not sustainable. Go ask any any star, any celebrity, period, that's lived the fast life, if they're alive still, right? You know what I mean? Really, really dangerous path. But I think it's this our gluttonous behavior, at least in the Western world, in the modern context, has led us to this path, to this place where we encourage it. We're not even self-critical. We've deleted the institutions, like the religious institutions that give you this message, that say that, hey, that's a bad thing to do. And obviously everybody wants to go eat the entire cake in one sitting. You know what I mean? Everybody wants to go and have every single dinner be a steak and baked potato. You know what I mean? Everybody wants that. And so if you allow people to question an institution like the church, an authority figure like the church, and say like, hey, well, yeah, is it really that bad to be gluttonous? If you allow that kind of questioning to happen too long, or to undermine, if you allow other institutions to undermine the legitimacy of the church itself, then those things hold no weight anymore. Whatever the church says, hey, don't act in a gluttonous way, people are going to be like, yeah, whatever. You did this, you were wrong in this, so you know what? Baby with the bathwater, out you go. You know what I mean? No. Because it allows people to not only do you continue to act in a gluttonous way, for example, but you double down on it, almost in a vindictive way, because it's like when you're a kid and your parent tells you to not do something, and then let's say you're a kid and your parent tells you to not do something, and then you see your parent doing the same thing they told you not to do, right? Or that's not a good example. Maybe Your parent tells you not. I think that's a good example. Your parent tells you not to do something, and then you see them doing the same thing, something trivial, right? It undermines their legitimacy. That's my point. I'm not saying, there's a ways to undermine institutions or authority figures' legitimacy. Once it's undermined, it's very hard to gain back, because the person that was listening to or looking to them as a figure of power and respect and authority no longer can do that, and then they'll start to call into question everything else that you've told them as well. So, for example, the church. If the church has been, I think one of the biggest things for the Catholic faith, at least, has been, all of the controversy surrounding, in the modern day at least, surrounding priests and molestation accusations and stuff. I think this has caused a lot of mistrust within the Catholic Church specifically as well. It also has caused people to question all of these things that I'm bringing up. I think all of the things that the church tells you. Because it's like, you're a hypocrite. How do you allow this kind of stuff to happen under your watch when it's some of the most sinful behavior you can imagine? How am I, are sins a thing, period? You know what I mean? And that's kind of the line of thinking that we've gone down. Well, it's not well-founded. It's a baby with the bathwater scenario. And if you look into the modern world, you'll see examples everywhere of gluttonous behavior. You know what I mean? One of the best examples is people running out and grabbing toilet paper when things start to get bad. That's a gluttonous thing to do. It's not a need, it's a want. But you have acted so long in that comfort that it now you have started to associate as a need. You start to see how you grow. Your needs will grow if you don't properly identify what is a need. There's very few things you need. Very, very, very few, and they don't change. You know what I mean? You don't add things onto that list. If you're adding things you need, you're growing. Your idea of you is growing. You're getting fat in ideas. You know what I mean? Literally, you're freaking growing. And you let that idea play out long enough, what you turn into is this unquenchable monster that just devours. And you can see examples of these people everywhere, where it's like they're unhappy, right? They'll go out into the world, they're unhappy. They have everything you could possibly imagine around them. They've got all the cars, the TVs, the house, the whatever, right? Like all the fancy shit. And every single day or every single weekend, they're going out and buying something new, fancy. And they always have to tell you about it too. It's like, hey, look what I got. Look what I got. Look what I got. Look what I got. It's like, I'm so happy right now. And then 4 minutes later, they're out doing that same thing again. They're filling that void, that empty void. They're acting in a gluttonous way. It is an empty hole that if you try to continue to chase and fill, you're going to just become more empty. It's going to grow. The hole's going to grow. You become a black hole of consumption. And this is what most people, I think, in the modern Western world are. Black holes of consumption that just swallow. What did they say? Gulp down or swallow? Yeah, glutir. It's a good way of describing the modern human condition. That's what we do. Just consume. That needs to stop, and I think it might have to stop. It might be forced to stop through a lot of suffering. You know what I mean? If this economy, like we're seeing, it doesn't turn on as quickly as we've been postulating. It doesn't look like it's going to, right? I don't think it is either. You've started to see articles of people, like the states that are opening back up, people aren't going back out very quickly. I read an article the other day, I can't remember where it's from, so, I am kind of paraphrasing in this, but it was something to the effect of people are not going to go out to these restaurants until they have a vaccine. That's what the article was postulating, was that the people, when they surveyed people, something like 70% of people were not going to go back out to large sporting events, movie theaters, that kind of stuff until an actual vaccine was out. Meaning, yeah, nothing's going to open back up real quick. So like I said, you might be forced to not have steak every night or not have whatever it is. You reel in some of this gluttonous behavior. Reel yourself in, you know what I mean? I hope we do, because I think this is an important time to look at these kind of, I think this is why we're bringing it up. I think that's why we're talking about it. Let's look at the 7 deadly sins. Let's look at the 7, virtues. Let's see how we can apply them in our modern context. And just because these things exist and they're associated with things like Catholicism or Christianity or some kind of religion, period, it doesn't mean you have to abide by every single thing the religion has done in the past. It doesn't mean that. It just means these are still important ideas. If you view these ideas and you agree with them, why not apply them in your life? I've been really fascinated with, and I think one of the reasons I'm focusing on gluttony today as well is today, any of you that follow my Facebook, you may have seen I put a post up there, a quote by Marcus Aurelius, and Marcus Aurelius is one of my personal favorite philosophers throughout history. Nietzsche is one of them as well, but Marcus Aurelius, recently I've been getting more interested in him because I feel like there's something about Stoicism, which Marcus Aurelius is one of the most, if not the most famous Stoics in historical philosophy. And Marcus Aurelius was also emperor of Rome, right? Which is pretty fascinating if you understand the Stoic philosophy. To witness a Stoic philosophy in an individual that has that much power is profound. To watch somebody that has every ability to act in a gluttonous way, but refuses to do so, sets the perfect example, I think, for every single human being that came after him. If you want to learn how to live, go read about Marcus Aurelius. Talk about somebody with honor, respect, dignity, compassion, loyalty, courage, all of the things you want to have as an individual, all of the virtues you want to put yourself together as. He had, and I think the reason he had it is because he could have had everything. He could have acted in the most sinful, lustful way. What was the Roman emperor that led to the downfall of Rome? It starts with an N. I can't remember his name. Anyway, there's examples of people in positions of power throughout history, specifically emperors of Rome, that... Let me look up this guy's name. Sorry, guys, hold on one second. Nero. That's what I'm thinking of. Everybody knows Nero's name, right? Nero is the exact opposite of what you would describe Marcus Aurelius as. Let me go ahead and read you a little example of Nero. Nero is perhaps the best known of the worst emperors. This is off of thoughtco.com. This is just like one of those lists, top 5 worst Roman emperors. I will post it for you. Nero is perhaps the best known of the worst emperors, having allowed his wife and mother to rule for him, and then stepping out from their shadows and ultimately having them and others murdered. But these transgressions go far beyond just that. He was accused of sexual perversions and the murder of many Roman citizens. Nero also confiscated senators' property and severely taxed the people so that he could build his own personal golden home, the Domus Aurea. During Nero's reign, Rome burned for 9 days, the cause of which was fiercely debated. Some said that Nero used the fire to clear space for a palace expansion. The fire destroyed 3 of Rome's 14 districts and severely damaged 7 others. An artist at heart, Nero was said to be quite skilled at playing the lyre, but whether he truly played it while Rome burned is debatable. He was at least involved behind the scenes in some other way, and he blamed the Christians and had many of them executed for Rome's burning. That's very interesting. Why would somebody blame the Christians? He's the antithesis of these virtues, and the people that get blamed and punished are the people that are espousing those virtues. Makes sense, right? You'd understand why Nero would view people that are saying, hey, you're acting sinfully, as enemies. You know what I mean? Why you'd want to destroy them. Anyway, the rebuilding of Rome was not without controversies and financial strains, ultimately leading to Nero's death. A conspiracy to assassinate Nero in 65 CE was discovered and thwarted, but the turmoil led the emperor to take an extended tour of Greece. He immersed himself in the arts, took part in the Olympic Games, and announced futile projects that didn't address the current state of his homeland. Upon returning to Rome, he neglected to address issues that faced him, and the Praetorian Guard declared Nero as an enemy of the people. He attempted to flee, but knew he wasn't likely to succeed. As such, Nero committed suicide in 68 CE. So, fascinating. Ooh, this is interesting. Right below that, number 4. Oh my goodness, this is interesting. So I was just talking about Marcus Aurelius, right? Let's read about Marcus Aurelius' son. There's something fascinating that happens. You know, it's that old quote: hard times produce strong men produce good times produce weak men. Rinse and repeat. I think there's nothing more true than that statement. You can witness it happening over and over and over again throughout history. Commodus. If you've ever watched Gladiator, it's my favorite movie of all time, you will see Marcus Aurelius in this movie. You'll also see Commodus. Commodus is played by Joaquin Phoenix. right? Commodus is the son that murders his father, Marcus Aurelius, right? Marcus Aurelius was the philosopher. The son of Marcus Aurelius, Commodus, was, according to most historians, a debauched and corrupt megalomaniac who viewed himself as a reincarnated Greek god. Hercules, to be exact. How? You can see the ego in these people, right? However, Commodus was said to be lazy, leading a life of idle debauchery. He surrendered control of the palace to his freed men and Proterian prefects, who then, in turn, sold imperial favors. He devalued the Roman currency, instituting the largest drop in value since Nero's rule. Commodus disgraced his regal status by performing like a slave in the arena, fighting hundreds of exotic animals and horrifying the populace. You see this depicted in Gladiator. He fights in the arena, which is something that was usually slaves fought in the arena. So for an emperor to fight in the arena, that was below him. Performing like a slave in the arena, fighting hundreds of exotic animals and horrifying the populace. It was, in fact, this exact act that led to his demise, when Commodus revealed that he intended to celebrate the rebirth of Rome by fighting in the arena on New Year's Day in 193 CE. His mistress and advisors told him tried to talk him out of it. When they weren't successful, Marcia, his mistress, attempted to poison him. When the poison failed, Commodus's fitness coach, Narcissus, choked him to death the day before. Commodus was assassinated on December 31st, 192 CE. That doesn't make any sense. Why would you choke him to death? Okay, just because it was such a bad look, I guess. That's why he was killed, but he was killed. Okay, so I don't know if Commodus actually murdered Marcus Aurelius, if that was just kind of created in the Gladiator as a, cinematic event or something. But what I find interesting about Commodus and about Nero is you can hear both of these individuals, big ego problems, right? Massive ego problems. You'll always find that in evil people, every single time. And on top of that, you see what I was just talking about, kind of, the good times producing weak men in Commodus, also in Nero, right? And these are also the men that bring down the downfall of those civilizations, those societies. Now, for some reason, this also aligns with moral and ethical ineptitude. The people that end up creating the downfall of at this time, the most powerful civilization, or aiding in the downfall of the most powerful civilization to ever exist, longest lasting at least, was moral ineptitude. And there's been a lot of research into this. What was the downfall of Rome? A lot of historians have been trying to pinpoint one, ruler or whatever that led to the downfall of Rome, one decision that was wrong. The best that most can come up with is it was the direct result of moral and ethical ineptitude. A slow decay of the moral and ethical fabric that tied the society together is what led to the downfall of Rome. Apply that in the modern context. Pretty uncomfortable idea, right? How do you not act in a gluttonous way? I think one of the best things to focus on is discipline. How do you combat gluttony? Temperance, right? As a virtue, is the opposite virtue that's listed. I think temperance is akin to discipline. How do you, it's the practical, discipline is the practical form of temperance. How do you apply temperance in your life? You act in a disciplined way. You structure your life. You exercise voluntary self-restraint in moderation. That's how you get away from gluttonous behavior. That's how we combat that. So I think one of the best ways practically to do it in your life, and you can do it really quick right now, we've talked about it before, structure your day. You know what I mean? I posted a video on my Facebook. I'd love for you guys to go watch it after this because it's really inspirational. It'll motivate the hell out of you. And it talks about Marcus Aurelius and kind of what his day looked like as a Roman emperor. And what you'll find is there's probably a lot of similarities to your day as the average citizen wherever you live. That you can embody the exact same routine if you want to that Marcus Aurelius did. You can apply it and see how it works for you. See how you feel about yourself. See how the people around you respond. You know what I mean? See how your life grows. How happiness comes into your life, not because of gluttonous or unethical behavior, not because you're taking more, but because you're giving more. That's it. Take. That's the incentive structure in our modern system. It should be give. And with that, I think that's where I'm going to leave it today, guys. It's about 40 minutes in here. I hope you enjoyed this episode. I know it was a little different than what we've done before, but I really enjoyed it. I think that there's something here with these 7 deadly sins and 7 virtues, and I'm going to continue down this track of thought. But if you have any questions, concerns, comments, please check out my Facebook page, my Twitter page, my Instagram page, and please like, share, and subscribe. Share it with anybody that you think might enjoy the podcast. I want to get it in front of as many people as possible. Alrighty. Stay safe out there, guys. And like I said, I'll be gone for about a week, but I should be back on here probably about a week from today, if not a little more, if not about 8 days. All right. I will talk to you soon. Bye-bye.